let's move on. Obviously the main man Hafiz, who actually has been complaining about like these a lot of things, are not is not here right now. I want to switch actually to a little. I want to go down a little bit with. Oh, all right, choose. Um, the trends of the club legends returning to the club. We'll go to that section, and then we'll go back to players versus manager because I think that's going to be a huge debate in and of
Hmm.
itself. We've seen this season that a lot of managers that were club legends for them before are pretty much coming back. You look at the likes of Thierry Henry, Frank Lampard, Pirlo, coming into those teams who were club legends in and of itself, and had very mixed results. You look at Frank Lampard, who did well in his first season with Chelsea. With the lack of transfers, he still managed to get them into fourth, but faltered this season. Pirlo at the moment kind of embarrassingly went out of the Champions League round of 16 against Porto, and of course for the first time ever, not win the Serie A title after I don't know how many times they won it consecutively,
Maybe
but
like 7 or 8 or something.
7 or 8 I believe, yes. And then finally, of course, with Thierry Henry, for example, when he took Monaco, horrible job. I mean, horrible like stint for him. Didn't win many games. I think only won like 1 or 2 games, and then he was sacked. And they actually had to bring Jardine back.
Hmm.
Of course, these are all negative examples, but there have been success stories for club legends to come right away. You look at the likes of Pep Guardiola, for example, who, I mean, to be fair, he did have experience with Barcelona B, but that's Barcelona B. Comes to La Liga, absolutely smashes off the park, winning every trophy there is with his stint, and yeah, did pretty well. And then you look at Zidane as well. In his stint, he was able to win 3 Champions League on the bounce, and of course, winning the league. And I think he
And
also,
he was the same instance as Pep. He was only the manager of Real Madrid Castilla, so like they were both in the same boat, only managing academy sides, and then just flourishing out of nowhere in pole position.
right. But here's my question. I want to put it to you guys. Are these types of players, that former players, quick to get these elite jobs right away, though? Even though, yes, we do have these Pep Guardiolas, we do have Zidane coming in and everything, but if they were to take, for example, like a Chelsea or anything, and we do argue that the Premier League is so quote unquote more competitive in a sense, do you think it's more fair for them to actually get experiences within the shorter sides first before getting those elite jobs?
I don't think that like the pedigree of their legendary status should earn them the job just because they've been at the club for a long time or they had a big impact on the club. I think that from the club standpoint, they should want somebody that's there with experience and knows how to win, so that they don't have to be in a rebuilding phase. That they get their man at the right time, and they play the football, however, whatever style they're playing, and they win trophies or they get themselves in good position to the league and cement the club in a better position instead of wanting their coach just because of their legendary status.
So
Anybody else want to add on to that?
yeah, Mitch has got a good point. And also the thing is, the main thing the manager needs is a CV. When you look at
Hmm.
Zidane and Pep Guardiola, they were dealing with B teams, which is kind of an experience, but still they were really good as tacticians or as managing the players. But when you look at Frank Lampard or Pirlo or these sorts, they don't have much experience, and all they need, and also on top of that, the tactics didn't work out with the players. Like Pirlo plays a different game, and UA wasn't the same as when they were playing with Sari. They couldn't adapt to Pirlo's tactics. The same thing happened with Frank Lampard. The influx of new signings, the after the influx of the new signings, the team looked clueless. Like I said in my previous videos, they were clueless. They didn't have a proper chemistry, a proper tactic. So that's what led to their failure. So the main thing is player management, tactics, a good CV. Um, I I probably think that Guardiola and Zidane, they were pretty good in terms of leading their B teams. So that's why they took a deeper look into it and they hired them, and that's why they're successful. So the main thing that mm, it's that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I agree with both of you guys. I think in today's time, it takes a lot more. Sorry. Yeah. It takes a lot more for a manager to manage a club, and we'll get onto that in the player manager debate. If we look at Zidane and Pep and like club legends, they had a lot more going on than just being the club legend. And Mitch raised this point. It, the mentality that you require is next level, and we can't see that as fans. We can't observe that. It doesn't matter what club legend they are. It doesn't matter what they did. It just depends on their job. I'm gonna compare this example. We look at Mauricio Pochettino. He played at Espanyol in La Liga. Espanyol are Barcelona's rivals, but I think Pochettino was the best man for Barcelona before they hired Koeman.
Hmm.
I still think that to this day, that they should have gone in Pochettino. And Pochettino was fine with it. In the beginning, he said that like few years back, he was like, "I'm never gonna manage Barcelona." But before Coman signing, he was fine with it, and they didn't consider him. And I think he deserved a fair shot at that time because he has that mentality that Coman doesn't, and Coman is a club legend. There's no denying that. But club legend is not enough to manage a club. You need a lot more.
Yeah, like going off of Mustafa point, that's like a really good point on Coleman, for example. His CV at Everton, he maybe didn't achieve what maybe he personally wanted, and he got the Netherlands job, and he really didn't get anybody's votes from them because they've just been on the low recently. So for him to get that Barcelona job, I don't really understand how he really earned that, other than being a club legend, to be honest, because um, the last few years haven't been so good to him. And other than him playing for Barcelona, there's no real reason why they would have wanted him instead of Poch, for example.
All right, fair analysis, fair points from each and every one of you. And I think you guys are more so on that because you look at managers beforehand, like those Mourinho, like even Antonio Conte, for example. He wasn't given like Juventus right off the bat, and he's considered a Juventus legend. He kind of had to work his way up to get there. Maurizio Sarri is a good example, who, he was working a day-to-day job and everything, and he had to build his way up from the lower leagues to the top and everything, right? Another good example is like Brendan Rodgers. Villas Boas was actually, I don't think he was considered like a top tier player either. Or Arrigo Sacchi, that guy. He didn't play football either, but he learned the ways of football and everything. Started from the bottom and went to the top as well. These are great examples of people that worked from the bottom to get to the top. So in that sense, do you think that when you look at managers like that who has those kind of credentials of knowing what it is to lose and to really take those experiences and everything, don't you think that's way more valuable than, even though yes, players do have those emotions and everything to actually understand the game and everything, they understand the feeling and the emotion of what the fans are thinking. But in terms of the application and like the other stuff, and especially with football these days, there's so many things to know about, right? I think Mourinho, for example, actually said in his press conference that he doesn't consider himself as a manager of Spurs. He considers himself as a head coach in that aspect. I mean, you want to actually, Mustafa, do you want to actually talk about that as well? Because you would know more than I would in terms of.
Are we really getting there right now?
No, I know just the fact that he considers himself a head coach compared to a
Yeah.
manager.
Yeah. Yeah, but are we going to talk about the topic right now? That's what I'm asking.
I mean, okay, you wanna hold it for a little bit? Then?
Yeah, I want to
Okay,
hold.
fine. We'll hold it for a little bit because obviously my man Mustafa has a lot of things to say regarding this. Very passionate. But we'll move to something else then. But yeah, like, for example, that's an example of it as well. But still, like I think a lot of people do look at this manager role. You look example for like Klopp, who's still kind of like a manager in that sense of guiding people and everything and whatnot. So, is it important that there is someone that in that lower position that knows how to micromanage certain things because that's the job of a manager. They don't just you know, like I said, like in basketball where they just be a head coach. They kind of micromanage every single thing as well, right? So, would you want someone who has the experience from the bottom to build a way to the top rather than someone who was a player that only did one thing of being a player and, going directly into a manager role?
I think. Oh, Akilesh, you go ahead.
Yeah, I think what you said it was right. Micromanagement becomes one of the major players in the game in terms of being the head coach and taking care of each player that they have in the team. Like it has given rise to some legends, so it is it is a key for winning titles. It is a key for the legends in the upcoming legends and the legends which we saw in the past. Yeah, Mitch, go ahead.
I think the best example of like a good man manager in like the last year is Mikel Arteta. Right when he left City, you saw how our dip in form matched exactly when he left the club. So I remember watching a couple interviews and part of the documentary. Like he's a big part of why our team was so cohesive at the time because he's a really good man manager. He used to stay with the players and train with them or coach them when Pep wasn't training whatever time. And Arsenal, I think for majority of players, I think he's been a good influence on them, especially the younger players. And he at the start he had good results against some of the big teams, and they won 2 trophies at the early part of his tenure. Right now, maybe they're not doing so good, but I think he's a really good man manager, and I still don't think he warrants the job. But I see why Arsenal would want him as their head coach right now.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of which, we have Hafiz on the board. What's up, Hafiz?
Yo. What's
You're,
good, y'all?
you're
How's
lucky we're
everyone
not in
doing?
the player versus manager debate yet, which I think you would be excited to do heavily. But
Very
right
much
now
so.
we're talking about like club legends returning to the club, and we were just touching upon like whether or not club legends deserve those big jobs right away or not. And what's your point and stance on that?
Well, we're talking about positions in the club that's not directly soccer related, right? Not tactically related, right?
No, we're
Like
talking about like
management positions, right?
like the actual manager role in and of itself.
Oh, the manager role.
Yeah, the big Dawn fam.
I think as long as there's yeah, okay, no. I think as long as they've had some sort of guidance as to, how to approach it or if they understand what they're doing per se. Because like we've seen examples of players being good managers and then you've seen examples of of players not being good managers. And I think an understanding of the game, an understanding of the team, but more importantly an understanding of leadership is what's extremely important. And if they have that, then like I can't see why they can't. Not necessarily right when they start off, but I can't see why they can't be a manager. I
Be a
can't see
manager.
why not. Yeah.
Who's there? Oh, we have
That's my
Matusa
take.
now as well. who's here.
Hey, welcome.
Welcome. I mean,
Thank you.
that's nice. All right, brilliant. We have a lot of people coming on. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So obviously your point stands in a certain effect, but how would you grade someone if you think that yes they should be in the right spot and everything? Because at the end of the day, we look at certain managerial roles that do come into the job and everything, and they tend to falter. So why do some succeed in that case where they kind of more or less have the same experience, or maybe they have like little things that may have changed it, and like others that why do some fail in that point in time where they have a small amount of time where they actually been practicing and then they do well with another team, and then some managers they do succeed right away. Why do you think that's the reason?
I think one part could be the environment of the club. If your players don't respect you, they're not going to perform for you. So you have to be able to provide an environment where the players will respect you. You have to show that you know what you're doing, show that you do, you know, care for your team, and be willing to take a risk when it's needed. But more than that, the one thing that I noticed that every successful manager has, like regardless of whether they're new or not, is a philosophy, a way of playing, a style, right? Whether it's a terrible one or a good one, they all have a style of playing. And so if you're not able to identify a style of playing that works or that has potential to work, you're not gonna you're not gonna you're not gonna get anyone who you're not gonna get people to believe that your way of playing works. And if your way of playing doesn't work, then it doesn't work. It also matters how much pressure and responsibility is on your club. So Frank Lampard is a good example. He came in, or this year specifically, there was huge investments made, and so they had high expectations of him. I think those expectations were slightly unrealistic considering his situation, considering the fact that he's still a new manager, and the fact that when you have so many new players in a team, it's gonna be kind of hard to get everyone to gel together at the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it's a club legend like that, I think one of two things: either you tell him, "Yo, take a break now, but we'll try to have you back later on after we get things sorted out," or I guess do what they did and just be like goodbye and who knows.
I mean, to be fair as well, when you look at the managerial job, you look at Klopp as well with the kind of like the inside issues that he does have, right? He's not afforded a time to like just stop and everything. He's kind of that person that has to kind of keep going, which is kind of sad in a sense that he is in once again he is in the higher position, but there is a point where you're like, you're not like a staff or like a player. Like for example, Alisson was able to take some time off because he was in that position that they could because he is a player and that's thing. He's not like that kind of main leader, right? In that sense. So
I did not understand anything you said.
no, what I'm saying is, how Alisson, he's a player, right? But his father passed away and everything. But because he's kind of like an employee in that sense, not like a leader per se, he's able to allocate time to have a leave and whatnot from the manager's accord, right? You can still pretty much call him back. And
Well, at the end of the day, they're all humans, so I think they
Yeah,
deserve
that's what I was
that.
gonna say.
yeah,
they
but
let
like,
time
but
to
then,
mourn.
but you look at Klopp, right? His parents passed away, pretty much, right? Sorry, not his. Was it
His mother.
his mother, right? His mother passed away. He wasn't given time to leave and everything, right? And
They couldn't leave because of COVID going on right now.
well, COVID going on, one thing, right? But to mourn, I mean, right? He still pushed forward in his own accord. Now, I don't know if they would give him a chance to do it with the owners
They
and everything,
would.
but
No, like they would have to. If
Well-
he demanded it, like if he's like, "Yo, I need this to function," and some people do need it, I think they would have given it to him. Otherwise, you'll see a significant decrease in performance. He's not gonna mentally be able to focus on what he needs to focus on.
that's true. But in a sense as well, I think some people are really cruel as well, which is kind of sad. You kind of push people because again, one thing is you can look at it in a humanitarian point of view, and they really should. On the other hand, they are contracted in a way, so that's something that's like inside, and you were to know. Plus, that the club itself actually hid the fact for a while that his mother did pass away during that time, and then it was only later revealed that because he couldn't go back, that's when it went over the news as well.
Yeah,
This whole thing.
fair enough. But no, with the Allison situation, I don't think we should be giving Klopp credit for letting him go. I feel like that's like the standard.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
yeah, for sure. I'm not
Yeah.
not saying he doesn't deserve credit. I'm just saying the reason why that he would be allowed to go over than someone like Klopp, per se, like in that sense. But anyways, that was kind of like a sidetrack. I did actually wanted to talk about in terms of like the style that the game in. Man United fans, right? Some Man United fans, they protect Ole in terms of like he's doing well right now, especially like he's trying to build a team, especially with his man management and everything. But other United fans, they do talk about how Ole doesn't have like a consistent, discernible style of play, in that sense. So, is it really a question of, and I mean like consistently, right? So, is it also maybe like other factors that do prohibit players to do better as well in that sense?
I honestly think that yes, Ollie is good in management, and I think his like you said, the tactics is here and there. It's not just the same consistent tactics. I feel it's mostly reliant on the players' abilities. So the players, how they play and how they control the game. That's how it mainly depends on. That's how they're winning most of the games and stuff. I don't know whether I'm right, but it feels like that because they've been on both sides. They've been losing, winning, drawing games. Yeah, so I think it's mainly due to the player abilities and the players' performances that they are winning. Uh, I don't see the tactics coming in most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else
Um,
want to add on to this?
yeah. So tactics is only one aspect of gameplay because like you could as a manager you could assign a tactic for the team, but they might not even follow it, right? The other aspect is motivation, getting the players, hyped up when you're down. For those of you who watched the documentary, the Spurs documentary, like a very, very important part of what Jose was doing was like at the halftime break, right? Tactics doesn't change. The only thing that changed is like, yo, get out there. All right, you could do this. Time to go again. Time to do it, right? Whether they win or they lose, like the tactics generally remains the same. I
Mhm.
think what Oli does a good job of is motivating the team. I think he, in the dressing room at least, I'm not saying I see it personally because I don't personally see it, but you could tell usually at the beginning of the match or at the beginning of each half, you'll see them performing well.
Mm-hmm.
They've had a decent number of goals in the first few minutes, penalties in the first few minutes. You've seen a decent amount of
Sure.
those. So because of that, I think Only is a good motivator, and I think that's just as important as tactics. And which by the way, I do think he has tactics, but it's not as clear, as straightforward, and it does change. So could he improve in that sense? Probably, but I still think he's doing a pretty good job and should be given time.
But
I
don't
think
you?
that
Mm,
his
go.
best position would probably be like an assistant coach would be like that head guy's right hand man because he seems to do really well with motivating his players to like if he said get early starts in the games and yeah motivate them to play. So I think that if Man United could get somebody that knows how to win and has that set style and have Ollie as his right hand man, I think that'd be a better mold for the club going forward.
Mm-hmm. It's a
Whether he
very
wants to do that or not, who knows? But
it's a very very interesting point. I actually want to do pose this question to you, Hafiz, because I think we did talk about this a couple times when it comes to like club legends and whatnot, and then we'll dive more into like this player versus manager debate. I think it does correlate with it. You look at managers like Maurizio Sarri, you look at managers like Brendan Rodgers, who had to actually work from the bottom and then build their way to the top to get into those managerial positions, and get those experiences and whatnot to get into those positions in the first place. Yes, you can look into it for the players that they have played the game a lot and everything. You may look at that maybe they do deserve it in a sense, but of course, in the modern game of football, there's so many things that you have to do as a manager now that it's unbelievable. When you talk about psychology, when you talk about dietary, etc., and the manager does still micromanage things. Although I think a lot of managers are becoming more like head coaches. Like for example, the Mourinho thing, he considers himself more of a head coach than that. But do you think as well that those managers that do work hard to try to get into those positions in the first place, and they're not lucky to have those big positions at the start, it's kind of, I guess, insulting in a sense that they don't, because they built their way up in the first place, compared to like club legends who, they don't particularly have to put maybe that much effort in a sense. Or do you disagree with that statement and give reasons?
Sorry. So if I'm understanding correctly, you're asking, is it unfair that managers who have to work their way up have to go through a process versus like a club legend who could just walk right into the managerial position at the top? Is that what you're asking?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
Because let me use this analogy as well.
I don't think it's unfair.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, let me just use a quick analogy. Actually, going about this, you look at some person who's been, let's just say, wanted to get this position at the job. What he does was, let's just say, this guy, he studies about the whole thing. He's done other like work behind the scenes to work for the job in the first place to get into notice. And then there's this other person who pretty much talked to the person at one point and had a good conversation, and because of that, the thing and everything, maybe not have like those certain qualifications and everything, but because that person's known and everything, he's got the job. I actually know one person actually that she didn't have the proper qualifications, but because she knows the person and everything, she got hired into that job in the first place.
She stole your position, bro? I'm sorry.
References.
Well, actually, no, but it was another piece of business. So yeah, just putting into that context as well.
So I'm actually gonna spin off of that analogy and give you another more realistic analogy. And how I see it is, think about like a retail store, right? There's the management position, and then you have employees who work there, right? A club legend is someone who's worked at the employee level for 8, 9, 10 years, something like that, right? So they've been there. They've never really had an experience like at the managerial level. So I think what's important is how much connection and how much knowledge has been obtained from that employee to the manager. So if the employee and the manager had a good bond, the manager did, show him, I guess, a bit of what there is to learn of management positions. Like me and my HR manager, like when I used to be at Canadian Tire, were really chill. Like he didn't tell me like some of the things he wasn't supposed to, but like he told me some things that I guess your average person who doesn't talk to him wouldn't know, right? So like in a situation like that where you are getting the information and you are getting a bit of guidance, I think because an employee like that understands the culture and understands the environment there better, I think working from within generally is a better idea than let's say getting a manager from another position, so from another store, let's say, right? Now, again, there's another side to it where they have experiences in terms of different ways of operating, in terms of different ways of doing, which can be very beneficial for your organization. So there are both sides of the spectrum. I'm not going to necessarily say one is better than the other. I think, though, if an employee could, for instance, fill in as a manager at a night, like at a closing shift or something like that, like they have the credentials to fill in as a manager at a closing shift, if they're at that level, I think they should be given a nod to be a manager at that club before someone else, unless there's a dire need for change in culture. Then that's a different story.
Right, right. Interesting point you put out. Um, what I would say when it comes to the manager role, right? I look at like managers being like the top end, right? And you look at like different like other levels, right? You know, in like a big time job and everything. Obviously, you do have like the little employees behind the scenes, but it's more of like a corporate thing, right? For me, anyways, let me use the lifeguarding thing as an example. So you have like your regular lifeguards and everything, and then you go, and then the next level is like head lifeguard, and then there's like pool supervisor, and then there's like the position above that, all the way to like the head of like what is it? The head of sorry, lifesaver, the head of lifesaver. That is like the top position, right? And when I look at like the football spectrum as well, there's so many little other jobs that are needed behind the scenes to get to that top position, right? When it comes to like tactician, and that's why there are many courses when it comes to like management and everything. Especially right now, I think like you as an HR student, you do learn like a lot of like de-escalation, customer service, all these other things that encompass it as well, right? So when I look at like the manager position, I think it's like a huge thing, right? And even though, let's say you're working for a lesser club in the beginning, right? There's less less expectation from you in the first place, and they don't have like the certain facilities as like some of the bigger clubs that they do have, because again they have higher expectation, right? So in a smaller, oh god.
Oh my bad.
Oh my god. Bro, that scared me.
No. This kid.
I thought that was your dog.
No. That was my brother, younger brother. Sorry, my bad.
But coming back to what I'm saying, when you look at those smaller clubs as well, right? They do have smaller positions when it comes to those things, right? Which they can build their craft easier. And the more experience you have with something, the more better. Now, for sure, there has been situations, and I do agree with it. Pep Guardiola, Zinedine Zidane are great examples of people that come right away. But kind of like with money, it's like putting it in a slot machine. It's a gamble, in a sense, right? Rather than someone that is like purely professional. So, with that perspective, do you think that there's kind of a way where you're willing to risk that again, especially with someone like Real Madrid or Barcelona? Yes, they've worked as well, right? We cannot forget. But even Zinedine Zidane, arguably speaking, at the beginning, he didn't really have like that set style, but he still did predominantly well with the players he does have. Which again, I want to also bring that to like the players versus manager debate later on. But yeah, go ahead.
Definitely. No, one thing we keep forgetting is managers are humans too. They learn and they adapt over time too, and we need to acknowledge that as a fact. We can't expect a manager to win. Like, okay, there's one title to win, one Premier League title. You can't expect 6 managers to win one Premier League title, right? Now, those who are more established, who've had, I guess, more investment or a better team or whatnot, expected. Like, you expect them to fully challenge, you expect them to win. But like at the end of the day, there's only one title to be won. Like, there are other cups too, but like one title to be won is the point. So growth will occur within managers, and it's also a matter of how patient could you be, right? The higher you are in terms of a club, the more desperately you need wins and titles for like the monetary benefits and whatnot. So I think it's a matter of seeing whether it's a matter of figuring out a couple things. First of all, if the player who's going to be a manager, is he going to be comfortable enough in that role? And if that's something that they want to take and want to embrace on, you need to be patient with it, right? It's as you said, it's a risk that either could pay off and could work out really well, or it might not be as successful right now, and that's a risk. That's what happens with a risk. But technically, getting other managers is also a risk. Like, there's no guarantee you're going to receive success from other managers as well. Look at Jose Mourinho, Spurs. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring up Spurs.
Like, let's talk about Jose Mourinho with Chelsea, bro. What are you saying?
I think we're more going into like players versus manager, the ideology and everything. So I think, like, does anybody have any like final remarks regarding like the club legends? Matusa, I know you've been standing here for a while. Do you have any opinion when it comes to this whole topic?
Um, I'm, yeah, I don't have anything to say right now, because I'm still trying to understand what the conversation is about. I'm still trying to get caught up with everything, so yeah.
Oh, okay. That's no worries. Do you want to maybe contribute to like the next topic that is happening soon?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's just,
All right, no
yeah,
worries.
yeah.
Does anybody have any final remarks regarding like this whole
I
Club Legends? Yeah, go ahead, Akilesh.
main thing I forgot to say this earlier. The main thing is the club legend knows how it works in the club. In the club, how it really works. Being the player first, then becoming the legend, and then he knows what it really takes to make things happen, and he has been through all the ups and downs. So maybe because of that, they get chosen, but it's not the thing. It's something more than that. Yeah, that's all I can say.
Okay, that's a very interesting point. But let me twist it to this way. Alan Shearer, for example, took over Newcastle, and to be fair, they've been in a bad position, but that wasn't predominantly enough to get them over the line as well. So, and then you look at many other teams as well that they're managed and everything, and they know what it takes. Roy Keane, people bigging him up and everything. He did well in his small spell, but then towards the end, kind of faltered. Gary Neville as well, who had that kind of passion and commitment and everything, even though maybe wasn't a club legend in that sense, like to Valencia, obviously, right? But he knows how to win things, right? In a sense, right? Maybe it's not directly towards their club and everything, but it is that sense where you gotta look at it, and is really raw passion alone really, the final, I guess, nail in the coffin in terms of like seeing success, right? And this is what I think when it comes to Gerrard as well. I think that right now he's doing pretty good. I mean, he's one of the few England managers in a long while to actually win a title for, one of the big European clubs. I know they're not considered top five in like Scotland, but it is a European club, and that's brilliant. They are playing the Europa League as well, which is fantastic.
We tend to undermine these Scottish clubs, but they really are good, and we've seen it time and time again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least for someone like me, anyways, I wouldn't want to see Gerrard taking Liverpool anytime soon. I want to see him develop more and be ready to tackle the problems because at the end of the day, we have a financial structure that's like trying to build up and everything, based on the talents and more of a kind of a self-sustained system, which Arsenal's trying to implement, but it's because they don't have certain talent and everything, it is failing. So, in that sense, I am looking more towards it, but but again, other clubs, and other teams that it depends on the team as well. They may look at it differently. It's like what, maybe it is the right moment to have like this club legend take over, right? So I think in that sense, it's very subjective on what the club. And at the end of the day, the club is the one that decides who they hire. It's not the players itself.
I get you guys' points about wanting to have these legendary players that know what it is to win and have all these titles and trophies. But I think like the key characteristic that makes a successful manager is knowing how to lose and manage your squad so that they can bounce back and um, try to win trophies again. I think that's kind of what happened with a lot of managers right now. Like let's use Lampard as an example. He's won a lot of trophies with Chelsea as a player, but he only had 2 years of professional experience, and he didn't take Derby to the Premier League. He lost in the playoffs, and he didn't win anything with Chelsea in his time there. So he doesn't really know what it's like to win and lose as a manager. So giving these player manager or these legendary players management roles kind of like it is definitely a gamble, but I think the key characteristic is they need to know how to lose and manage their squad so that they can change and develop and win again.
So you're saying Gerard's gonna be amazing, brilliant, perfect.
I think if
I
we
have a
look at
last point to add on.
if
I mean,
just wanna say something
technically
about-
speaking,
I just want to say something about Gerard quick. Because Because if we look at what he's doing right now, obviously he just won the Scottish league, so credit to him. And even though it's not a big league, he still won that trophy. But if we compare him to Ollie, for example, who everybody slanders him all the time, but he also won the league in with Norway.
Yeah.
So even though that's not a big league, he still knows how to win trophies. So if somebody's gonna say that Ollie's not a good manager because he never had any experience with a top team and winning, that's definitely untrue and uncredited, because he deserves to have a job. Maybe that job's a little bit too high for him, but he does definitely knows how to win.
I do agree with that point of
And
view.
I had
Anybody
a
wants to add on?
yes. So we were talking about Lampard, right? And uh, Mitch had a really good point about managing knowing how to lose, and that was not the case with Lampard. He usually blamed it on the players. He couldn't accept defeats. That's the main thing. And a lot of critics said that Lampard needs to stay. Lampard needs to stay, but he needs more time. But why does he need more time when the club is doing really bad? When the club is doing really bad, and it's in the position that we are not supposed to be in. We were in on top of the table, and we went all the way down to 10th. So that's at the moment we needed the change. So they took the right decision. Sentiments doesn't matter. Success really matters in this club, and that's
Okay.
why it's he got sacked.
Okay, Hafiz, you
Success.
wanted to add something.
You
Yeah,
wanted to pose with something?
I wanted to counter that suggestion. So Ole was also in a terrible position with Man United.
Yep.
Was it last year or the year before? Very similar to Lampard.
This year too, they were in 16th by like October or something.
Point is, Ole was
Yeah.
in a terrible position, right? What did Man United do? They stuck by him, right? They gave him the resources, and now they're up in second place in the league. I'm not saying Lampard would have done it, but I'm saying we'll never know if he'd be able to do it because he wasn't given the opportunity. And I also understand that success is important, but y'all are not winning the league. Like, it's not happening. So
Yes,
as long as Mhm.
but the thing is, we weren't. At least if we were, remember 15-16, that was the worst season, and Mourinho got sacked. We weren't supposed to be in 10th place. That's the main thing. We don't belong there. We are not a mid-table team. We are a English superpower as well. So it's basically built on that success model. If the manager doesn't succeed, take him off, find another one. So the same thing happened with Lampard, and I don't know what happened with Conte and Sari. I'm not really aware of it, but this thing is mostly understandable.
Mustafa, you have something to say
like
to
I
that?
Bro, I'm just waiting. I'm just
He's just
waiting.
waiting for the
What can
whole
I say?
player versus manager debate. Do you guys
I'm
have
done.
anything?
I'm done to jump to right now.
All right. Are you guys? Is everybody done it? Does anyone have any final thoughts about this
That's
topic of Club Legends returning to the club?
Oh, one last thing, real quick.
All right, go for it.
Arsenal and Arteta, they're in a terrible place right now, but I respect them for what they're doing, and I think we're gonna see them come up soon.
Of course,
You would
because
like
it's a
that.
team that you support, man.
You would like that.
Exactly.
It's okay. You know, Hafiz. You know, he's
I
really
said that
big
knowing
upping.
exactly what would have came to me, but it was worth it. It needed to be said.
Okay, man. I mean, to be fair, Arteta has won a trophy. You
Two.
know, 2 trophies. I mean, can you really count the?
There you go.
Of course.
FA Cup and the Community Shield.
All right, but guys,
At least it's not the Audi
appreciate.
Cup.
All right, appreciate you guys. But guys, if you want to continue this discussion, please leave it in the comments down below and about the trends of Club Legends returning to Club. Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing? Let us know.